Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast. With your hosts, Ashley and Michael, please sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast sponsored by the Undroppables. No, presented by the Undroppables and sponsored by Analyst Depot. Listen, I took a week off last week. I needed a quick little mental health break, so I'm a little bit rusty, as you could tell at the beginning of this. But I am your host, Ashley. This is my co-host, Michael Duncan. Hi, Michael.
Hey, everyone. I'm back in not London.
I know, back in Philly.
It's great to be
I know.
back.
I know you got to tell us a little bit on the show last week about London. You got back this week. How was it?
It was incredible. It was really interesting. I do not have a lot of experience traveling. I have no experience traveling outside of the United States other than Canada when I was 3, which I don't remember. But yeah, it was pretty cool. They say things weird. I could not understand anyone. That language was much more of a barrier than I was expecting. I don't know if I just have really crappy hearing or if I don't know, but I had a lot of trouble talking to people. I felt very uncomfortable all the time, and I still do not understand what the name of their country is. So quick update on that. Still don't know.
It's okay. It's better to live in denial, not know. Ignorance is bliss. I know, I'm jealous you got to go to the game and everything. You're just used to the strange Philly accent. So
there's nothing strange about our accent. We just have weird words like John. Although I did say John really in London.
And what they said
got me a weird look. That got me a really weird look. And I was like, I forget that it's weird outside of Philly. But in a different country, it was even more.
Yeah,
weird.
well, I mean, sure, if you said that in the Philly cheesesteak place you went to in London, it wouldn't have been as weird. But if you just said it on the streets.
Yeah, I will say quick shout out to not a sponsor, Passyunk Avenue, I believe their name is. It's a Philly dude that moved to London and opened a Philly bar in the middle of London. They had cheesesteaks and beer and crab fries. It was delicious. It was all really good. I felt like I was back in Philly.
Yeah, you called me and you were like, "Oh, I went to dinner at a Philly cheesesteak place." I was like, "You went all the way from Philly to London to get a good cheesesteak," and it was a good cheesesteak from what I've heard.
It was, and it was an awesome place too. The entire place was just covered in Philly sports memorabilia, so it was awesome.
Good. I love to hear it. I'm happy you had a good time. Unfortunately, they didn't have any James Robinson jerseys. That was a big L. Big L.
Still very angry. Very angry. The disrespect is
seriously
real.
Nobody respects James Robinson the way you do. So yeah, I'll give a quick little asterisk to this show that I am currently in Massachusetts, where there has been storms all day. I didn't have power all day. I do have power now. So if for some reason I just fly off the screen, it is because I lost power. The street I live on loses power a lot, and with the storm it loses power more. So if I jump off, somebody else may jump on for me, or it may just be Duncan again by himself. But
the solo pod was so overwhelmingly successful last week that
it was.
Ashley decided that she doesn't need to be here for the entire pod.
Exactly. I just come to the intro
of me.
Yeah, I'll just do the intro. You do the whole meat of the show, and then I'll come back on for the outro.
Perfect.
I can't. Okay, so we'll jump right into it. We are going to start as usual with our injury report. We're actually not going to do a game breakdown this week. We have a fun little segment for you after our injury report. But we'll get started from the top, right where we usually do, the injury report. And that starts with our quarterbacks. One very notable injury was Zack Wilson, who had a knee injury on a pretty bad hit during the second quarter, and was noted that there was no serious structural damage, but he has a sprained PCL. He's expected to miss at least 2 weeks, and his backup is Mike White, who was announced he'll be playing, which was pretty obvious after the injury.
Not for long. They did trade for former Jets great Joe Flacco, so he'll probably start next week unless Mike White lights the world on fire, which I didn't even know who he was. So
I mean, Saleh did say that Mike White is playing this week, so Flacco is probably queued up for next week. Patrick Mahomes took a hit to the head during a sack in the fourth quarter. Chad Henne came in for the rest of the game, but the team is optimistic he'll be playing this week, so nothing too serious. I'm pretty sure he got evaluated for a concussion, but didn't have one. So
Yeah, he was
that's
cleared.
great.
He could have gone back in the game, but there was no reason to. So
Yeah, they were getting blown out. So onto our running backs. Miles Sanders from the Eagles was ruled out during the game after getting an ankle injury. Eagles don't think it's anything too serious. He's considered week to week, but minor.
Yeah, it was one of those. Apparently, a report came out that looks a lot worse than it actually was.
Yeah.
He's technically still questionable for this week, but he probably won't play.
He's been having a rough break this year. With just
they finally gave him the
for later. Save it for later.
Save it for later. I can't.
Josh Jacobs from the Raiders left the game around halftime with a chest injury. It seems it's not serious, and it seems he's avoided any major injuries. Ty Johnson from the Jets was evaluated for a concussion during the game. I didn't see anything else. I'm assuming he was probably okay. He is probably okay, but that's what I saw, that he was at least evaluated for a concussion during the game. Onto wide receivers, Diami Brown from Washington had a knee injury and missed the rest of the game. He's another one who's been having a rough break, especially with injuries this year. Just again and again missing time, so that's upsetting for a rookie. Devontae Adams was placed on the COVID list, and it was kind of announced a couple hours ago he'll not be traveling with the team. And Alan Lazard was also placed on the COVID list. The Packers have several people on the COVID list.
One important note there. So Adams is vaccinated. Alan Lazard is not vaccinated. So I don't believe that Alan Lazard has COVID so far. He's just listed as a close contact. So depending on how that works out, he could be fine for next week. But if he does get COVID, that means he'll probably be out longer than Adams because he's vaccinated. Theoretically, Adams could have almost played on Thursday night. But it was just you need a bunch of negative tests, and they didn't know that they could get all of those tests done in time for him to be able to, especially because they were traveling. I think if it was a home game, he probably would have ended up playing. They would have gotten those tests done in time, but with traveling, he wasn't. If he passed them.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. DeAndre Hopkins was listed as questionable for tomorrow's game with the Packers with a hamstring injury. And another big news that kind of came out today was about Antonio Brown from the Buccaneers. Arian said it's a sprain. He's suffering with a sprain around his heel, and he's unsure when he'll be back on the field. He says, quote, could be back after the bye, which is week 10, or could be a long time. It's wait and see, end quote. He was seen on crutches around the facilities this week. It kind of seems like this might be something that's a little bit serious.
I think it is. I mean, it came out of nowhere. I want to say it felt like Thursday or Friday of last week. It popped up on the injury report. All of a sudden it was okay. He's questionable. It didn't happen during a game last week, as far as I can tell, or 2 weeks ago. But yeah. And then, this news didn't come out until this morning about, this today being Wednesday, for the podcast listeners. But, that could be serious because something that, we hadn't even heard of went to maybe he'll be back after the bye, maybe, which is horrifying.
He'd be back. I think week 10 is their bye, and so he'd be back week 11. So that's 3 more weeks of football. Yeah, but that's a lot. Like in 3 weeks is put on IR type injury, So that's not great. For tight ends, one of the bigger one was Johnny Smith from the Patriots was ruled out during the game with the Jets with a shoulder injury. I haven't really seen any updates on that one either. Usually a lot of the I tend to say that a lot during Wednesday because our podcast is on Wednesday, and a lot of the more serious injury, like the news on whether they'll play or not, or kind of the seriousness of injuries comes out after, unless it's a really serious injury where they're take him to the hospital right after the game and he tore his ACL, something like that. But because of the way practice schedules work, a lot of people take off on practice on Wednesdays, and then you'll get news about them on Thursdays. So it's not that I didn't look for these injury updates. It's just that they're kind of pretty tricky to find by a Wednesday.
I think all of our listeners just kind of assume that you're lazy and bad at your job.
I know, it's exactly what it is.
Clearly,
do you want me to jump off now?
So
take a power outing.
That's fine. I'll do another solo pod. I can talk about James Robinson for another 45 minutes if necessary.
Do it. I have like 4 here for just offensive line and defensive players. Jabril Peppers, the safety for the Giants, tore a couple ligaments in his ankle and is set to miss the rest of the season, which is was it ankle or was it knee? Did I write
No,
ankle?
you're right. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
I was looking at
You gave me a
comment.
look. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's ankle. No, but he torn some things in his ankle. He's going to miss the rest of the season, which is highly upsetting. He wasn't having the best year. I think it was more so because the Giants weren't using him very effectively. But he's a huge morale guy for the Giants. Every time they do one of those like pieces on like who's the funniest in the locker room and who would you want to be friends with your family, that kind of thing, it's always Pep. So that's a huge bad thing for the Giants. Devin McCourty for the Patriots exited early with an abdomen injury. Jayvon Kinlaw from the 49ers has a knee injury, and it was said that he might need surgery, and if he does, it will be a season-ending surgery.
That was one of the most bizarre updates we got.
Right?
Just reading it, I was like, wait, is he out? Is he fine?
Yeah.
I didn't even know what to take from it, to be honest.
It's like, okay, if he may need surgery and it's season-ending surgery, there's a possibility he may not need surgery, which means it's not season-ending. So I don't know. And JJ Watt, the defensive end for the Cardinals, has his shoulder injury and he's ruled out for tomorrow's game. That one also kind of came out of left field. I did not even really see any like updates on him, and I got an update today that was just like JJ Watt's out. And I'm like, okay. Anyway, on to the best part of the injury report, the good news. Tyrod Taylor from the Texans was returned from IR. That means they have 21 days to move him up to active roster, and it was noted that he's going to start practicing this week. Dak Prescott from the Cowboys with his calf injury, it seems to be getting better. Todd Archer reported that Mike McCarthy said his calf has improved every day. He'll go through individual drills before the medical staff assesses where he is heading into team drills. Cooper Rush will get snaps with the number 1 offense, which happens on a normal week anyway. So Dak did not practice Monday, but the team is still fairly optimistic that he will play, which is, good for them.
I've gotten bad vibes from that entire situation all season. I feel like it came out of nowhere and then they underplayed it, and also he's constantly like did not practice, and it's more of an issue than they're willing to admit, but they're all saying it's fine. And I don't know.
It seems they've been doing that with a lot of his injuries. I think it's kind of more of a like save yourself from the issues of like a very expensive quarterback and the media and all of that kind of stuff. It kind of feels like, I agree with you though, a lot of the injury news surrounding Dak has been a little bit sketchy, and I don't think it's just because it's thin news. Like it's just, I think it all seems to be very, very like behind the curtain and keep it very secret. Baker Mayfield with the Browns, who did not play this week with a shoulder injury, did not practice Monday, but practiced today and got starting reps, which is pretty good. CJ Henderson, the cornerback from the Panthers, has a shoulder injury. And I don't know why that one's down there. That's supposed to be up with the offensive and defensive list. CJ Henderson had a shoulder injury.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, that's not good news. Anyway, Saquon Barkley from the Giants is set to return to practice this week ahead of Monday Night Football with the Chiefs after he suffered that pretty gross ankle injury with the really bad swelling. Nick Chubb from the Browns is expected to come back this week against Pittsburgh after his calf injury. And one of my favorite updates on the good news injury segment is Rob Gronkowski from the Buccaneers returned to practice after a bunch of broken ribs and internal injuries and punctured lungs. Sidelined him for a few weeks. I think it was 3 he was out for.
Yeah, it might be a little bit.
It was definitely 2, but I'm thinking it was 3 full weeks. He missed like the rest of the game for the 4th week, whatever. Arian says, quote, hope he can play this week against New Orleans. So that's great. I'm so happy for him.
Yeah, I love Gronk. He's always fun to watch.
Yeah. So on to our segment. Like I said, we are not going to do game breakdown this week. We are going to do a little segment called Sound the Alarm. What DEFCON level do we think these teams are at?
Ashley, what is a DEFCON?
What is a DEFCON?
Which one is which?
Which one is which? We almost got into a tip about it earlier, and I was wrong. I'll admit that. So DEFCON ranks from 1 to 5. 5 being the best, 1 being the worst. So DEFCON 5 is considered like that's like the scale the government uses, right, to depend on like figure out what level of readiness they need to be. So DEFCON 5 is like the lowest state of readiness, a normal day to day. The middle one is like, DEFCON 3 is Air Force ready to mobilize in 15 minutes. DEFCON 2 is the entire armed forces in less than 6 hours. And DEFCON 1 is like maximum readiness, nuclear war is imminent, like that type of thing. So we are going to gauge a handful. I believe we have around 8, 9 teams that we're going to gauge how we feel, what DEFCON levels the team, the organization, the fans should feel surrounding that organization.
Yeah, we're not worried about nuclear war necessarily,
No.
but we're just going to kind of gauge how worried we are about their franchises, how
Yep.
they're looking right now. And yeah. So yeah, I'll start us off with a team that we talked about, I think like 4 weeks ago. And the question was, are they a contender or pretender? And I think we were both on the
You both
side of
said
a pretender, and
pretender.
that's the
Yep.
Carolina Panthers.
Yikes.
Who last time we talked about them, they were 3-0, and since then they have lost 4 straight to the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Vikings, and the Giants. Wow,
Yep.
3 NFC East teams.
I
That's
know,
embarrassing.
right? How do
That's
you let the
horrible.
worst division in the NFL run over you?
It's not good. It's not good. And they started the season 3-0, like I said. So I'll ask you, how worried are you about them? What level are you at?
Honestly, probably DEFCON 2. I do not like the way this team is playing. With Christian McCaffrey out, it is a whole different ballgame for them. The second he went out is when they started collecting losses. And I don't know, Sam Darnold looks to have regressed on his, rushing touchdowns, which is a huge thing holding up that team. There's more turnovers. The defense that was supposed to be, that was at the beginning of the year a fairly good defense, I would say even a pretty good, very good defense, is not doing their job. I mean, and like I said, the offense isn't doing anything. I mean, you only put up 3 against the Giants, so that's not great. They got a safety like against them this week, so I would probably put them at DEFCON 2. I don't really like the way as a whole it's looking. I don't think the coaches are doing very much to help them on the playbook and scheme wise. It just kind of seems overall very like discombobulated.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I will say that I think the defense, for the most part, is doing its job to the best of its ability, considering the help that it's getting from the offense, which is to say not a lot. But yeah, I think the most surprising thing about it is, again, like, part of this is sort of expectations. Like, I don't think either of us, and they're not on this list for a reason, but like, we're not worried about the Detroit Lions because we knew they were bad. Like,
Yeah.
we knew they were bad. They're not exactly, worrying us about the fact that they haven't won a game yet, because like
We expected it.
yeah, that nothing about that is surprising in the slightest. So part of this is definitely, for me, the fact that this offense has just looked miserable. And, Matt Rule is a coach that I really, really like. And Joe Brady is positioned himself to be one of the probably youngest head coaches in the league in the next few years. He's going to be a hot name that's going to gain a lot of traction this offseason when head coaching spots open. And the offense has just not looked good. And, part of that is definitely Sam Darnold. He has not looked good at all. But, I don't think they're really putting him in a place to succeed. And honestly, with the exception of DJ Moore and maybe Chuba Hubbard, like, I don't think anyone's really doing too much. Some crazy numbers that I found this week was, these are the last 3 games from Robbie Anderson, starting in week 5 in Philadelphia. I'll give you the targets first. 7, 11, and 9, playing over 86% of the snaps each of those games. His receptions were 2, 3, and 3.
Yeah, he's been a huge, if you drafted him like I did, at least in one of your fantasy leagues, he's been one of the huge disappointments in fantasy football. He's also like getting a lot of air yards. Like he has like all of the stats except for catching the ball.
Yeah, well, yeah, the important one.
Yeah.
But and at the same time, it's not really just him. I mean, DJ Moore, who's for the most part been fairly good, and obviously he's been kind of off. He's had a little bit of a bad stretch here, but 7 targets against the Eagles for 5 receptions, but then 13 for 5 receptions and 10 for 6 receptions. Like the catch rate on this team has been pretty miserable these past few weeks, and I need to see something out of the supposed offensive genius minds of Joe Brady and Matt Rule to kind of, try and get this team back on track, because that's what worries me. I didn't think that they'd really be contending this year. I wasn't sure what to think of Sam Darnold. I did like him. I thought that he maybe showed that he was better than he was with the Jets, and I guess not. But they don't really show the improvement that I was hoping to see this year in the second year of the Matt Rule era and the start toward what I thought was a rebuild toward being able to be competitive. Because I think they've drafted really well lately. And I'm probably around where you are, which is like a 2 or 3 in terms of DEFCON level.
Yeah. And like you said, I think, they're we expected a little bit more, especially after a 3-0 start. You don't expect a 4-run loss streak. And I think that that's kind of what's startling me the most. I like we both said we didn't expect them to be contenders, but going on a run of 4 games where you lose 4 straight is serious DEFCON 2 vibes. Yep. All right, on to the Seahawks. Let me know where you're at.
Well, they're 2-5. They're in 4th place in the NFC West, which might be the best division in football. They've lost to somehow, I think this is wrong. I don't think they lost to the Seahawks in our show sheet. But they did lose to the Titans, Vikings, Rams, Steelers, and Saints. And they don't have Russell Wilson. I am nearing DEFCON 1 with the Seattle Seahawks. And the reason being that Pete Carroll is playing like they still have the Legion of Boom. He wants to run his offense through the running game. And okay, fine. I get it when you have Geno Smith out there. Fine, whatever. But also the guys running the ball are Rashad Penny and Alex Collins. Not exactly a recipe for success when you've got DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett on the outside. And what worries me the most, and the reason this is a DEFCON 1 for me, is really just because of the everlasting chatter of Russell Wilson not wanting to be in Seattle anymore. Yeah. That's what worries me. Their defense is terrible, and Pete Carroll refuses to adjust anything in the way that he approaches this game. Russell Wilson will single-handedly win them 10 games every season because that's just the type of player he is. He's insanely efficient. And with him not playing, it's just showing how bad that this offensive and defensive strategy is for this team. And I think Russell Wilson is probably sitting there thinking the same thing that he's thought the last couple of years, which is, unless Pete Carroll goes, why would I want to be here? They're not helping him. I mean, they're not helping him win games, and they're not helping him make, hopefully, one last run or two at this Lombardi trophy, because the team around him is just failing. The offensive and defensive coaching staffs are just not doing anything. It's nothing like the Legion of Boom years. And that's why I'm worried, because I think you have to keep your quarterback happy. And it blows my mind that year after year, when the whole let Russ cook thing is going on and people are shouting it from the heavens,
even Pete Carroll said it this year.
Yeah, and it's like, well, then why? You're the head coach. It's like when Andy Reid comes out and says, oh, yeah, we really need to get that running back the ball more. It's like, dude, that's your job. You're the one that can do that. Pete Carroll, you are the dude that can unlock the kitchen to let Russ cook. So why don't you do it? So he doesn't want to leave.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm the Seahawks owner, I'm like, I'm calling up, Russ. He's probably laying in his bed making some weird video for Twitter that he does. And I'm just like, dude, what do I need to do to make you happy? Exactly. Like, how do I make you happy? Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. It's not about money. It's just do what he wants him to do. Like, if you need to yell at Pete Carroll to pass the ball more, do it. But I think if they're not careful, they're going to lose the only thing that's even slightly keeping their organization afloat. So that's my DEFCON 1.
I agree. And it pains me because I love Pete Carroll. I really wish Pete Carroll was like an extra one of my grandpas. I really love him. I very much enjoy Pete Carroll on my television. But you're right. It's just like a complete failing. So honestly, for me, it's like this season, I really don't have a DEFCON level. I don't really expect much anything out of this for the Seattle Seahawks this year anymore. No. But for the organization as a whole, like I'm almost a 5 because it's like you kind of, like we said with like the Lions, it's like you don't expect them to make a run here. You don't really expect them to do too much, especially after Russ got hurt. But for the organization as a whole, for the future of this organization, I agree with you. I am pretty much on DEFCON 1 for this. I mean, like you said, there's been talk of Russell Wilson wanting out. And there's been talk of like, maybe we won't even see him back in Seattle, right? Like, I mean, yeah, he looks very happy on the sidelines being able to help because he's actually having a little bit of input in what the what the offense is doing, and that's what he wants. But there's talk that like maybe his injury was going to push him into like what, probably around week 13, 14, something like that. So it's like if they're not making a playoff run, why would Russ risk his health, want to come back for a team that he doesn't plan on playing with next year? So that's huge. The defense is an absolute dumpster fire. I mean, I can't ever stop thinking about the video we saw on Twitter, you and I, about the game with the Rams where the Rams just kept running the exact same play and it was just mirrored.
Yep.
So they would like, it was like Cooper Kupp on one side, Robert Woods on the other, and they would just flip it and they just kept running it. It was literally Madden. It made no sense. And the Seahawks could not figure out how to cover it at all. And they ran the plays like back to back to back, made an entire drive on it. And the Seahawks could not figure out how to cover it. So it makes no sense to me. I think the entire organization has a lot of thinking to do. Coordinators are not helping. Coaches are not helping. You have the talent there.
GM isn't helping.
The GM isn't helping.
I disagree. I don't think they have.
Really? I think you're missing a decent running back. That's about it.
Well, I mean, I think running back might be one of the strongest positions on their team right now, even without Chris Carson. Their defense is awful.
Yeah,
their defense has little to no talent. They traded how many first-round picks for Jamal Adams and paid him $1 billion.
That's another reason you should be on DEFCON 1.
They're 2-5, and they don't even have their own first-round pick, but they're paying Jamal Adams $1 billion to suck. Like DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, that's great, awesome. Love having that talent. Who else? Who else are you legitimately? I mean, yeah, they have some good pieces on the offensive line, but who else are you legitimately extremely excited about on this team? Because their drafting has been miserable the past few years, with the exception of a hit there or two. But like really, like Russell, like this is just it's like seeing the Colts in that year that Peyton Manning had to sit out because of the neck injury. Mm-hmm. You watch them go 1-15. Watching the Seattle team without Russell Wilson is just showing how awful of a team they are and how he single-handedly keeps them afloat every year. And yeah, this is also the worst that they've been in the past few years, but I think they're just not a good team. Yeah,
I think for me, it's more so like, I don't think you have the talent there to win a Super Bowl. I think you have the talent there you should be able to have the talent there to at least get you more wins than what I'm expecting them to get this year. But again, that's Russell Wilson out. But it's not like you're missing every single piece. This team should be better than they are. And it's not. I mean, also Geno Smith heading the table is not helping. But yeah. On to the next one. What do we have next on our list? We have
fourth in the AFC North, the Pittsburgh Steelers, with losses to the Raiders, Bengals, and Packers. Surprisingly, 3 actually very good teams this season.
Yeah.
They're 3-3. Mike Tomlin is never saying never, but never, and he's getting asked about a coaching job. It's
not enough. There's not a booster with a big enough bank check.
We'll have to introduce him to Buddy Garrity. For anyone that's watched Friday Night Lights, hopefully you're laughing at that. For everyone else, I'm sorry. But yeah, are you worried about these Steelers?
All right, I'm probably gonna put them at a 3. Like I'm between 3 and a 4. Like I don't know. I'm not too worried. I think you need to show me something that Big Ben is not the man after this year. Big Ben should not be the man this year. But I think that's kind of where I say if you're gonna sit here and say that Big Ben is gonna stay with you, I jump right up to DEFCON 1, nuclear war imminent, because he is washed. Like I hate to say that about a player, but man has a noodle arm. All he does is get hurt. He can't run. It's just a disaster for him. So that's a huge thing. That was mean.
He does. He was just running and just tripped. I mean, I do it too, but I'm not in the NFL.
Me either.
I'm not paid to be athletic.
Yeah, that's true.
Just saying.
I mean, could you be if you wanted to be?
No. I don't have the genes for that.
Oh God. Anyway, I like the way that this team has a decent amount of young talent. They have a lot of pieces there. You could see that they were making the moves to try. This year, they were making moves that looked like we were trying to make one last run with Big Ben, right? That's kind of what you could tell. And unfortunately, Big Ben is kind of holding them back a bit. Their record, I think, is probably better than what it could be. I feel like there's a lot of opportunities there where it could have been a much worse record. So I think that the organization as a whole, I like Mike Tomlin. I think he's doing a pretty good job coaching. I'm not going to say completely upstanding. I think he's doing a good job coaching. I think the piece for me that's not letting me sit at like a DEFCON 5 is Big Ben and the fact that he is holding this team back.
Yeah, I mean, they do have a lot of good young pieces. They have Najee Harris, Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson. They have a solid defense, a good defensive backfield, especially guys like Minkah Fitzpatrick, and obviously TJ Watt in the front seven. I wish I could say 5 because I love Mike Tomlin. I think they do have a lot of really good players, and obviously, yeah, Ben sucks. It is what it is. I think that they're probably the 4th best team in that division, but that's also a very good division. The thing that worries me the most is, obviously, yeah, I can't wait for Big Ben to not be on that team because I want to see what they can do without him. But then I think, but who are they going to have? They don't have there's sometimes you've got these teams where it's like, okay, if Aaron Rodgers leaves Green Bay, at least there's like a first round quarterback. You might not love Jordan Love, no pun intended, but he's still a first round quarterback with a decent amount of talent. Like there's something to be hopeful for there. What on earth is there to be hopeful for? If Big Ben leaves, it's like Cam Newton.
Yeah.
No, I hope not. Dwayne Haskins, God no. Mason Rudolph, no.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, you can hope and pray that Aaron Rodgers goes there or something like that. But I mean, realistically, like right now, if you ask what the answer is next year to Big Ben, it's like, I don't even know if I would rather have a washed up Big Ben or a Mason Rudolph starting.
Yeah.
So that's what scares me because I don't really see that position getting better next year. And we see how they are right now with a very incapable Big Ben, who at least has experience in the NFL and can understand that he should drop it off to Najee Harris like a billion times a game. Like at least he has that common decency. So I wish I could say I was at a 5. I'm probably at a 4, and it's really just because I don't know what their plan is beyond Big Ben. And they're not the type of organization to make some big splashy move normally for a quarterback. So, I mean, they haven't had to worry about it for a billion years. So I think that's going to be one of the most interesting things this offseason, and it's going to be one of the biggest question marks. And I think that's really going to shape the quarterback market this offseason. I think that looking ahead to that, I think that's going to be the thing that decides all the other positions available.
I agree, and I think it's going to have a big to do with Mike Tomlin's availability as well, if I should say that. I think
he'll be fine.
I think so too. But if you're gonna, I don't know. I think he's a great coach, and I like him. But I don't doubt that somebody there will be like Tomlin. Anyway,
they've had 3 head coaches since like 1962, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, someone can fact check me on that and tell me I'm wrong, but literally 3 head coaches. He is not getting fired because this is not his fault.
Do you want to hear the polar opposite? The New York Giants, who if they get rid of Joe Judge, they have to pay 3 head coaches next year.
That's exciting.
Love that fun fact.
That's awesome.
Right? Something to look forward to.
I love it.
Anyway, we're on to the Bears. The Bears 3 and 4.
You're not following the list. What's going on? We have a list.
Oh, I skipped. Oh, we have the Browns. I forgot the Browns right there. I saw bees. I started with the Bears. We'll jump back up to the Browns. Yeah. Bears 3 and 4. 3 and 4.
Wait. Are we doing the Bears or the Browns?
Okay, we can do the Browns. We'll stay in the AFC. We have
a show sheet. We need to follow it. What do you think this is?
Listen, I saw a bee, and then I was looking at the Bears. We shouldn't have put them next to each other. I did it. I know. I knew we were going to say that. All right, we're
talking about the Browns.
The Browns.
Staying in the AFC.
4 and 3. 3rd place in the AFC North with losses to the Chiefs, Chargers, and Cardinals, the 3 Cs. Let me know. What do you think? Where do you sit?
Oh, I'm like a 5. I mean, do they have issues? Yeah, but I mean, maybe they're not going to win the AFC North. Honestly, maybe they come in 3rd in the AFC North, but I think that could still very much equal a playoff berth. The 3 teams they lost to, we're going to talk about the Chiefs in a little bit, but the Chargers are a very good team, and the Cardinals are still undefeated and might be the best team in the NFL right now. They did that without Baker Mayfield for a game, maybe two. He's been injured all season. So I guess like maybe that's something to be a little bit worried about. But honestly, like Baker Mayfield's not really going to go out there and win them many games to begin with. Although, again, you got to give him credit in that Chiefs game, especially. You know, he was able to keep up with Mahomes. But their recipe to success is mainly about running the ball and playing really good defense. And they have very good abilities to rush the ball and play good defense. So I'm not worried about them. You know, maybe it's not what they look like at the beginning of the season when it looked like they might take the AFC North, but I still think they're in good shape to make the playoffs.
I agree. I think the one thing for me, I would like to see a little bit more development with Baker Mayfield. We've seen a lot like you and I have sat down for an entire segment and compared stats from last year to this year, and we've seen a lot of improvement with turnovers, with touchdowns, with kind of game management. But there's still a good amount of development I think Baker Mayfield needs in order to keep me like fully comfortable for him with the Browns. And I think that's kind of the one piece for me. Like we said, you know, I don't think our expectations are going to be completely matched. Our preseason expectations on the Browns are going to be completely matched with what it's going to look like at the end of at the regular season. I do think that there's still a chance they get into playoffs, a pretty good chance at that. So I'm really, really not too worried. And I think coaching is doing a great job. I think players are doing a decent job. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say about the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, if the Browns are making the playoffs, then you're probably thrilled because that's not what the last 20-some years have been.
Yep, and I will jump to the next. I mean, seriously, you have to be excited. But I'll jump to the next one, save myself. Now we're back to the Bears.
Chicago Brown Bears.
3-4, sitting in third in the NFC North with losses to the Rams, Browns, Packers, and Buccaneers, which those are all good teams.
Yep.
Yeah.
They are.
All of them are very good teams. I mean,
yeah.
What do you think?
Well, first I need to DEFCON 1. Have you watched New Girl?
I have watched New Girl like 10 times.
Oh, okay. I said Chicago Brown Bears and I got no reaction.
I was thinking about making sure I did that right when I said that. But because I messed up the first time, but I love New Girl, love Nick, and his love for the Chicago Bears. Do you know there's a picture of the brown bear on the fridge?
Oh, like on the set or whatever?
Yeah. No, like on the set. Like you can see it there. There's a picture of just a bear. Like they don't have like the Bears logo, but they have a picture of a bear on the there, and there's a bunch of like bear stuff like hidden around like Easter eggs.
I love Schmidt and the fact that he called them the Chicago Brown Bears.
The Chicago Brown Bears.
It's just the Bears. It's very stupid. Good. I'm glad we did that. Glad we went off on that little tangent. Yeah, it's like a DEFCON like 1. Yeah. Maybe a 2. I don't like. What is there to be excited about? Everything it's miserable there. I mean, David Montgomery. Khalil Herbert. He single-handedly might bring it up to DEFCON 2, I guess, because he's been a nice surprise, I guess. But like Justin Fields has looked miserable, and I don't blame him because I think Matt Nagy is garbage. Like I think he's hot garbage. And they need to like. I think it's DEFCON 1 because I'm legitimately worried he might not get fired. It terrifies me because I just don't trust the Bears to do the correct thing or make a smart choice. And that might lead to Matt Nagy still being the head coach. Like, fire him now. Honestly,
it's like dooming yourself.
Like, what has he done to deserve to have a job right now? Like this season, what on earth has he done to say, I will not fire him tomorrow? Like, no, get him out of there. Let him stop talking to Justin Fields and just like, I don't even know. Like, bring in anyone else. Like, just put Justin Fields in a room with anyone but Matt Nagy, and maybe you can save his development. But man, I don't know. It is terrifying. Allen Robinson looks like he just does not care, and I don't blame him.
And he's like always noted as like QB proof, right? Like
and he has been. I mean, I think that's maybe one of the most worrisome things is he's been QB proof, and I think that makes Justin Fields look somehow 1,000 times worse than he actually is because Allen Robinson can do what he did with the likes of Mitch Trubisky and Blake Bortles, and then he can't do it with Justin Fields. It's like that's horrifying. That is terrifying. The defense has underperformed for the most part. Like I don't know. Please just fire Matt Nagy. Yeah. And we can go back down to like DEFCON 4 or something.
Yeah. I saw a tweet that was like, Robinson is QB proof, but I can't remember who did. I think it might have been Sam, but she was like, we always said Matt Nagy was QB proofed it, but we think about the fact that he might not be Matt Nagy proof. And that's exactly what it is. All of these players are just not Matt Nagy proof. I don't understand how you could be hopeful for the future currently with Matt Nagy at the helm. I just think, like you said, there is like little player development anywhere. It's a horrible place to raise a QB when you're like, he's our starter, he's our Andy Dalton all the way. Actually, just kidding. You're our starter from now on. Just kidding. Let's go back. Like, it is a horrible place to be able to, like, you have to think of it's like psychologically too, that plays with players and it plays with the QB and it plays with the team and team morale and how these receivers have to prepare for these quarterbacks and offensive scheme supporting a certain type of quarterback. So how are these players supposed to feel and look good when this is what's going on with coaching? And like everything is underperforming. A lot of people had a lot of expectations for the Bears this year, and unfortunately they're not living up. The way they have 3 wins is miraculous to me.
Yeah, it's bizarre. It's horrible. It's horrible there. But
yeah,
I digress.
Yeah, we can go on
Nothing
to the next.
Positive to say there.
Yeah, no, DEFCON 1, nuclear war imminent. On to the 49ers.
I'll ask you this one. So they're 2-4, coming off of a bye week. They're 3rd in the NFC West. And they've lost to the Packers, the Seahawks, the Cardinals, and the Colts. Where are you at with this 49ers team?
This one's
not
tough.
to mention one of their wins was against the Eagles. And honestly, they didn't even look good during it.
They didn't. I'd probably say like a 2. Between a 2 and 3, I think. I don't think I'm anywhere near 1 because I think there is a lot of hope for the future with this team. Again, another place with a decent amount of young talent. It's just another one of those things that there's like a lot of stuff swirling around Jimmy G and the way Jimmy G's been in the locker room and the way Trey Lance is and all this kind of stuff. And I'm kind of just not, none of it looks like it's meshing. It just seems like schemes are not working with players. We're not getting I love Debo. Debo's been popping off, but I feel like you need to incorporate more Brandon Ayuk in there. They're just not. And that's not even from like a fantasy perspective. It's just to like open up your options.
You have
on
a
that
first-round wide receiver
like,
that ball rookie year. Like
exactly.
The fact that he's not getting the ball is like Kyle Shanahan. That's on you, dude.
Bizarre. Yeah, it's just in general. I just think a lot of this seems like Kyle Shanahan issues. I think there's a decent amount that again is kind of the growing pains with with somewhat of a rookie quarterback. Like, I mean, he's a rookie quarterback, but he's only in some of the times and whatnot when only when Jimmy G's hurt, whatever. So I think some of it is the growing pains with an organization that's obviously has a lot of young talent. But to me, it seems like a lot of it is Kyle Shanahan, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, we've been seeing reports about Kyle Shanahan has like been very, me, like taking a lot of the credit and not taking any of the blame. It reminds me, and I feel like I've said this like every other show, but the reports that I'm reading are just, it's reminding me a bit of like the Chip Kelly days with the Eagles, where it's like when he became the GM and he said, okay, like I don't need these players. Like I can put whoever in my scheme and I can make it work because I'm an offensive mastermind. And it's like, yeah, okay, Kyle Shanahan, I will give you this. I could probably play running back for you and rush for 1,000 yards. Like that's a really, really, good job. But like, you see guys like Giants guy now. What is the dude? Dante Pettis. He was great and then he wasn't. And it's like, but why? Why does the coaching staff all of a sudden hate him? Brandon Ayuk seems like he's going through that exact same thing.
Yeah.
It's just very bizarre. It's very odd. I don't like it. Kyle Shanahan is very good at his job, at least offensively. But I am beginning to lose faith in his ability to be a leader of men. Because, it's one thing when they're winning. It's always the easiest time to be a head coach. Honestly, if I was the head coach of a team that went 16-0, I think my job would be very easy. Yeah. Obviously, I went 16-0, good for me. But like, I'd have no problem commanding those guys respect. I'd have some problem, but it's easy to coach a winning football team. But you're 2-4. You're coming off of a disappointing season. off of a disappointing Super Bowl loss going 2 years ago. I think he might be starting to lose some of his key players, some of his key leaders. And, you trade your entire future away for a guy in Trey Lance, and that entire situation has been very just poorly handled, it feels like. I don't know. Kyle Shanahan needs to learn that just use the players you have. Like, stop trying to outsmart yourself, dude. Like, stop.
Being an offensive mastermind only gets you so far.
Yeah, I have never been a big Sean McVay fan. I think that he was extremely overhyped, but I give him credit. He has changed what he's done, and he's adjusted as teams have adjusted to him. Like, I will give him all the credit in the world for that because he's done that. Kyle Shanahan is very much going in the Chip Kelly route, which is bang, get into the NFL. You went 10-6, went to the playoffs, got a career year out of Nick Foles. Awesome. Or that would have Mike Vick. Then you get a career year out of Nick Foles, go 10-6. He adjusted nothing, and then he was out of the league in 2 more years. Like, if people start to figure out Kyle Shanahan, which to a certain extent they are, obviously injuries don't help, but he needs to learn how to adjust or he's not going to last. And because the fact that he's not a good leader of men is not going to help his case.
Yeah, and it's another one of those, like you said, leader morale things. Like, it's in the running back room too, right? Like, what a mind bend was going on at the week 1, right around preseason to week 1 to week 2 that was going on. Like, what was going on in that running back room that you had very good running backs that were healthy scratches or didn't get any touches. Like, it actually makes no sense.
To be fair, Trey Sermon does not look like a very good running back, and
he's
the healthy scratch.
Was a very good running back. Like, I don't know. But you had young guys. I don't know. So I just think it's still a mind bend that these players were like getting first team reps and then healthy scratch, and then you don't give one the ball, and then you run another like it. And I know he's like a running genius and whatnot, but it seems very like unsustainable, I think is what it is. It's like running a place like this where it seems like there's a lot of divide, from what I'm getting out of reports, is not very sustainable for a team.
Yeah, it's rough.
But I'll ask you this one because I'm excited to hear your answer.
Great.
The Eagles, sitting at 2-5, tied for second in the NFC East with losses to the
crap. Of all the teams we've talked about, the Eagles are the ones that are tied for second in their division. That's just ridiculous. I hate it.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Sorry, go on.
Losses to the 49ers, Cowboys, Chiefs, Bucks, and Raiders. I want to hear your thoughts on your Philadelphia Eagles.
Well,
wait, hold on. Backtrack one. You never gave me what level you were on with the 49ers.
3.
3.
Probably.
Okay.
3
what
level
level
toward 2.
Okay. What level you on for the Eagles?
Well, Ashley, a team is a lot like a flower. You need to water it and fertilize it every day, because that's how it gets better.
Okay.
Or something. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm at a 1. I don't think our defensive coordinator knows how to defensively coordinate. It's horrible. Like, and I'll get to Nick Sirianni in a second, but this defense has been pissing me off more than anything. Like, you don't have very good personnel. The best personnel you have is your front 4, but you're overcomplicating things for them. If that's the best part of your team, let them rush the quarterback. We are one of the worst teams against the run in the entire NFL, and the supposed reason for that is because that will help us be good against the pass. Nope, not good against that either. Yeah, I get it. Our linebackers are absolute garbage. So maybe you don't play 2 deep safeties and make your linebackers have to cover the entire middle of the field, because Alex Singleton, former CFL star, is not a suitable linebacker 1. And the guy you drafted in the 3rd round, like 2 years ago or last year, Davion Taylor, doesn't really understand the game of football. He's just fast. Jonathan Gannon is completely unable to adjust anything, I guess. It's the exact conversation that I feel like we were just having. He has a scheme, and he's doing nothing. Like, he talks the talk about wanting to build around the players that he has, but you've got Fletcher Cox, a long time, like, very quiet leader in the locker room, the highest paid player on the Eagles. maybe a future Hall of Famer defensive tackle, one of the best of the past like decade and a half or past decade along there with Aaron Donald. Great player. Definitely past his prime. You do have Jayvon Hargrave, but you've got Fletcher Cox out here talking about how he's not paid to read screens. And it's like, maybe he shouldn't say that, but like the fact that he is saying something about that, especially considering all the crap that he has gone through, like all these coaches and whatnot, all these schemes, like, and now he's saying something that tells me something, and that makes me unhappy. Jonathan Gannon looks like he's been way over his head. But yes, Nick Sirianni today or yesterday compared running his team to a flower, and you have to water it and fertilize it. I don't know,
Yours
man.
didn't compare your team to a sinking submarine.
I wish, honestly, it'd be
That's
more
what
honest.
Joe Judge did.
Well, I hate Joe Judge. But at least he's realistic.
Ropes too, I think.
Now. But oh yeah, the counter. Yeah, Nick Sirianni, I really like him as a person.
Me too.
He's high energy. He wears all these shirts and he's pandering to Philadelphia, and I live for pandering.
But we've talked about that before. That's what he needs to do in Philly.
Absolutely.
But he's just not backing it up.
Yeah, but and that's the thing. I think there's certain things that he's very good at. At certain times, he looks very impressive, but he is in over his head as an offensive play caller, and that he proves that every single week when he gives one of the best players on your entire team, probably in Miles Sanders, one of your most electric players, he gets like 3 touches. And yeah, I get he's injured now, but like, what about all the weeks leading up to that where he had like 2 rush attempts, 3 rush attempts? Like, come on, man. He's in there for 80% of the snaps, and you can't get him any more touches. That's ridiculous. Nick Sirianni is not the only problem. Jalen Hurts has looked extremely uneven. At times, he looks incredible, and other times he can't hit the broadside of a barn if it's more than 10 yards down the field. Like, there are a lot of issues with this team. The fact that Zach Ertz immediately went to the Cardinals and had the longest touchdown longest catch of his career made me very happy, but also very sad. I believe that Nick Sirianni knows how he wants to use his players, but I don't believe in his ability right now to properly offensively scheme against the defense and also play call. I don't think he's going to get fired after 1 year because that's not something the Eagles do. It's just not something that Jeff Lurie does. Maybe Jonathan Gannon will. Honestly, he's been miserable. I think Nick Sirianni will be fine. I have no clue what to make of Jalen Hurts. I think that the book is still very much being written. I haven't heard great things about this quarterback class, but there's a really good chance that it's looking like we're going to have 3 first-round picks, and 2 of them might be in the top 10. So
I will tell you that the QB class is very thin with not like
there's no Trevor Lawrence.
No, there were like 4 studs, and this year you'll be lucky. Like there's talk that there might not be a QB drafted in the first round.
Oh, there always
will be, but
completely side note. I hate that. I hate when people talk about that because it's absolute horse crap. Yes, one is going to go in the first round. It always happens.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I understand it doesn't literally always happen, but like, who was it? EJ Manuel or something? A guy the Bills drafted in the first round in like the same year as Geno Smith went in the second round, I think is the name that I'm thinking of. Like, there's always going to be one drafted in the first round.
It's a team that's desperate, but
yes.
My point was, there's
not one that's worth it.
There's not one that's worth it. Like if you, especially with 3-round draft, like imagine what you could do with 3 first-round, like early first-round draft picks, and you have a young quarter. You don't have an old man with a noodle arm at the quarterback. So it's like you have promise and a young talent. Yeah. It's kind of just like it's unknown right now, which is like a good chance the Eagles take if they are keeping Sirianni. Honestly, I don't think they move away. Is my personal opinion. It's like I feel like if you're keeping Sirianni, which I do think they will do, I don't think there is much that he can do that will get him fired this year. But I think that they probably both ride out into next year, and then it's kind of when they gauge what they want to do at the position.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. If you have 3 first-round picks, use them on difference makers across the board. And if Jalen Hurts proves to not be the quarterback in another year, maybe with, Nick Sirianni looking better in that year 2 or whatever, like, fine. Then you're probably in a decent position to draft a quarterback at that point, and you're going to have him on a rookie deal with hopefully a lot of ascending young talent because you have those first round picks. Two more things to touch on really quick, just because I don't get to talk about the Eagles I try not to talk about the Eagles very often. At least not in depth. But Howie Roseman needs to be fired. If we have 33 first round picks, he must not be allowed to make those picks. Howie Roseman being the GM of the Eagles, he is miserable. I don't think I don't know. I always go back and forth on whether or not he's actually good at his job. I think he might be good at his job, but he also really just wants to be the smartest dude in the room, and he's constantly outsmarting himself instead of just doing the easy thing. So please, God, if we have 3 first-round picks, do not let Howie Roseman make those draft picks, because I don't want that. And then lastly, actually a comment question and something I did want to touch on was that will Jalen Hurts be benched for Gardner Minshew now that Joe Flacco's been traded? I don't think so. That's one of the most annoying things that I've been seeing on fantasy Twitter, because obviously Jalen Hurts has been very good for fantasy, but not great in the NFL. He's like, oh, they traded for Minshew to bench Jalen Hurts. No, they didn't. They didn't. First of all, we're a quarterback factory. We always have 1,000 quarterbacks that we want to start because we're a quarterback factory. And I don't mean that sarcastically in the slightest. Of course, I do. But Gardner Minshew, no, they did not draft Gardner Minshew to be their future franchise quarterback. They traded for him.
Right.
They traded for him because he's on a very cheap deal, and he still has another year on his contract to be a very cheap backup, and that is an extremely valuable thing to have. A high-quality, cheap backup in the NFL is one of the best deals that I think a team can have for themselves.
I agree.
You gain nothing by benching Jalen Hurts for Gardner Minshew. We know who Gardner Minshew is, and he is not a franchise quarterback. Jalen Hurts, the jury is technically still out, because you can ask yourself, is it Nick Sirianni's fault? He's in 10, 11 starts in his career, whatever. There's more upside with Jalen Hurts than there is with Gardner Minshew, possible upside. They are not going to bench Jalen Hurts if he keeps playing like this, because it is not entirely Jalen Hurts' fault that they are losing. The entire team is sucking. If Jalen Hurts goes out there and plays miserably, yeah, maybe they bench him for the second half of a game or something, but unless he strings together 4 straight games of just absolutely miserable play, they will not be benching him. They are not just waiting and hoping that they have an excuse to bench him, because they gain nothing from doing that. Please just stop talking about benching Jalen Hurts for Gardner Minshew. Good Lord. Sorry, I'm done now.
No, you're good. I completely agree, though. It's not why he's there. If you genuinely thought that the plan was to bring in Gardner Minshew to just stop playing Jalen Hurts, I think you'd kind of need to reevaluate.
You're an idiot. You're an idiot, and you know nothing about football.
I
will have. I'll only say that about the Eagles because I follow them as closely as I do. But you're an actual moron if that's what you thought.
Yep.
So.
And I agree. So I think you said everything I need to say. I don't really need to elaborate on that, especially because you said it better than I could, because it's your team. But I'd probably put them at a 2 instead of a 1. I don't think I'm as sound the alarms as you are. So I guess
they dictate my mental health. So
I know.
Yeah.
I will. So that's pretty much all. I don't have much to say, but I want to get into the one that's probably one of the more interesting ones that we were going to talk about in the last one in this segment, and that is the Chiefs sitting at 3-4, tied for last in the AFC West with losses to the Ravens, Chargers, Bills, and Titans.
Yeah.
I don't even know where I've been trying to think about it, and I don't even know where I fully stand or where to start with this one.
It's probably a 4 for me.
I'm thinking 3.
I'm not worried about Patrick Mahomes. I'm not worried about Andy Reid, because we know what they are. Andy Reid did not just suddenly become not a Hall of Fame level head coach that has over 100 wins, or at least 100 wins with 2 franchises. The only head coach. He didn't just suddenly do that. And Patrick Mahomes did not suddenly become, not one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the entire NFL. That didn't change. I think the only reason I'm at a 4, not a 5, is because they have just the worst defense. Their defense is miserable. And it's awful.
Yeah, they're giving up it's bottom 10 in both pass and run defense. So they're bottom 10 in 2 facets of the defense, which is not good,
bad.
clearly.
Very bad.
Not good. Yeah, I would say I'm probably with you at a 4, maybe a little bit closer to a 3 than you're like a little bit closer to 5, and I'm a little
Yeah.
bit closer to the 3. I just think I think the one thing pushing me a little bit more towards a 3 is that this team has to not be happy with the way they're playing.
Absolutely.
And I think it's going to be one of those situations. I know it is, whether it's going to push you and you're going to like go all the way to the Super Bowl, or it's going to like crumble and fall. And I'm not saying they're going to like go winless for the rest of the season. I just think it might be like not get as far in playoffs. Like I don't think it's not doomed like their playoff run, but I think that a lot of it comes from they have to not be happy with the way they're playing. There has to be probably a divide somewhere, like a crack in the foundation somewhere here that they have to patch. And if they don't, that there's a very good chance that it spreads.
Yeah, I mean, I think where I stand with it is, yeah, they'll make the playoffs. I have very little doubt that they'll figure it out by the end of the season and they'll make the playoffs. But maybe it's the type of thing where they make it in the wild card instead of winning the division.
Mhm.
Maybe they even lose in the first round. But like that doesn't really change the way I'm going to look at them for the next season. Like we've
Yeah,
seen Tom Brady lose in the first round of the playoffs. We saw Peyton Manning lose in the first round of the playoffs. Like we saw these historically great quarterbacks have an off year or two. Because the team, I mean, Drew Brees, like how many years in a row were the Saints just like 8-8? At least that's what it felt like, where it was Drew Brees doing what he could, but not being able to do enough. And then they rebounded. They were fine because he's Drew Brees and it was Sean Payton. Like that's how I view this team. I'm really not worried because I think if anything, this will just give them less excuses to fix the things that they have to fix in the
I
offseason.
agree. I agree. And I
I
think I
mean,
was sitting
they
more to
can't
3
be
for
worse
this
defense.
season. I was sitting a little bit closer to 3 for this season. For long term, I'm definitely at a 4. Like you said, the defense is the only thing keeping me from a 5 for future wise. But this season's probably closer to 3. But I agree. I think that's a great way to put it, is that losing a little is going to be able to say, hey, like, let us evaluate what's going on here instead of
Yeah.
kind of like putting makeup on the defense and saying it looks pretty. Like it doesn't. So you kind of have to, with the way they're playing, reevaluate and say, how can we fix this for next year? How can we fix this for our future? How can we get back to being a complete Super Bowl contender? And I think that probably might be a good thing with that comes with these losses, which often there's not a lot of great things that come with losses, except if you're hoping your like head coach gets fired. But um, I think that's a great way to put it. But yeah, I'm pretty sure they're still one of the betting. There's like the second betting favorites for the Super Bowl,
Yeah, which
under than the
just,
Bucks.
it makes
The Bucks
I
are obviously the first. I think the Cardinals are probably close to them. I haven't looked since like before last week's game, but they were still the betting favorite, one of the
yeah.
second betting favorite for it. But is there anything else you have to say about the Chiefs?
No,
No.
Patrick Mahomes is good at football.
Yeah, and I saw something today that was like, his. We often talk about like touchdown rate can be unsustainable. Um, it's like maybe this turnover rate is a little bit unsustainable. Because
Yes.
he's having such heavy turnovers, and it's like having that many turnovers has to be unsustainable. The same way having that many touchdowns can be unsustainable. So there might be a regression, which would technically be a progression with interceptions. So
Yes.
I'm hoping we see that. He's a highly skilled. I think for me that's one thing though is I want Mahomes to I can't diss him in any way, but I want him to be a little bit better at managing what he thinks he can throw and can't. There's a lot of stuff that he's gotten away with, and there's
He's not
been like
gonna do
3
it.
or what? He's
He's
not
not
gonna do
gonna
You
do it.
said he's not
He,
gonna do
like,
it? Oh,
yeah, no, of
yeah.
course not. And
I don't think he is,
I
but I would love him to. Like, there are several ones of
nah,
his,
he
like,
won't.
interception tape that I'm like, "You should just know not to do that one." Like, you just threw it straight up in the air, and there was a better right there.
Ashley, shoot or shoot.
I
That's all
know.
I gotta say. Shoot or shoot. You let him shoot. Let him shoot.
I know, but come on, there's a few in there you have to say, "That was
No.
dumb."
It
Really?
no, because it's Patrick Mahomes.
I know,
I
but
agree with you in principle, but it's Patrick Mahomes.
at
He has
some
shown that
point
he can literally make every single throw that's ever existed. And honestly, if he thinks he can make it, I'm not going to bet against him.
yeah,
I
I
mean,
guess.
like, because 2 years ago, if I had said that, like, oh, dude, you gotta stop doing that. You're just gonna catch up to you. I'd look pretty stupid right now because
Yeah,
it worked. Like, yeah,
it
he's going through a
does,
rough
but
stretch. But the best 3-pointers of all time go through cold streaks. But
I
shoot is shoot.
agree.
Gotta keep shooting.
Yeah, but there's still a few in there that I'm not a huge fan of. Like, I'm not a fan of
Ah,
interceptions, but
shoot is shoot.
okay.
Just
We'll
gonna
end it
keep
with that
saying it.
quote today. I want to read you guys a brief message from our sponsor, Analyst Depot. Analyst Depot is your go-to source for all of your fantasy football analyst needs. They have an amazing suite of tools to help you be the best fantasy analyst. From tools showing you your player shares to free reports on player and defensive performances week to week, and the best tool that they have, hands down, is the projection wizard. It basically does your own team by team projections for you. It's super easy. It breaks down the whole process with step-by-step instructions and helps you make smart projections with historical data for every player, which is placed right in front of you as you do your projections. So just go to analystdepot.com and sign up for a free account. And I think that that's going to wrap us up today. We got very busy talking about the DEF CON levels, but that was a lot of fun. I'm happy we got to talk about a bunch of teams that we haven't gotten to talk about yet. Maybe we'll do another DEF CON breakdown for the teams we haven't done yet in the coming weeks. But I'm happy we did that. We got to gauge a little bit more. But yeah, that's about it. I thank you guys for joining us today on the Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast presented by the Undroppables and sponsored by Analyst Depot. I'm one of your hosts, Ashley. You can find me on Twitter at Ashley_Marie with 2 A's in Ashley. You can find me with the Undroppables, putting all my content out there on TikTok, on their website, on Twitter. And yeah, if you ever need to find me, the best place to find me is Twitter. Where can we find you, Duncan?
You can find me on Twitter. You can find me in London if you go back a week in time.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I'm on Twitter at mpduncan75. I'm the producer of the Undrafted podcast, hosted by Jax Falcone at Dino Game Theory. And yeah, you can find me with the Undroppables, not on TikTok, thankfully. So,
Do you
yeah.
want to come on TikTok?
I don't think anyone wants me on TikTok.
Why?
Yeah, for the
We'll
best
talk
of
about it later.
everyone.
We'll talk about it later.
We'll see.
You can find both of us together here, texting at like 3 a.m. because neither of us sleep, or Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a live show. And you can you can't find us, but you can hear both of us anywhere you listen to your podcasts. That's Apple, Spotify, Google. I don't know what they're called. Google Playlists, Google Playlist, YouTube. You can see us if you want to on YouTube for video playback. But anywhere you stream your content, you can find both of us in every episode of the Undroppables Playbook. We have a lot of good content coming. We have a lot of good content from our previous weeks. So give it a listen. Make sure to subscribe or like, depending on what platform you're on, and leave us a review if you can. Really helps out both of us, helps the podcast. And that's about it. So thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you guys next week for another week of football content breakdowns. I don't think we're going to do DEF CON next week, but who knows? We'll have a lot of fun games and segments next week. So we thank you guys for joining us, and thanks for doing the solo show on my week off. And we'll see you guys next week. I'll be back. He'll be back. We'll both be here. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone. Oh, darn.